Hi, this is Carol Butler. Welcome to the Carol Butler Show, and this is going to be a fun one. I'm going to tell you something new that Google has done. I'm going to share about concussions because I recently had one and how prevalent they are and what you can do about it. And also, I've got a special guest that I'm going to show for anyone that wants a little entertainment since it's Halloween. Also, I've got 10 pet tips to give you that will be, I hope, a little entertaining and maybe share a little information you didn't know about keeping them safe on Halloween. Plus, being on camera because I'm going to announce something very special at the end of this, the Carol Butler Show. So let me get started with what Google is doing that you might need to know because I don't know anyone that doesn't use Google as a browser. They might use many other things, but they've just recently come up with an update. So make sure you get this update that I think is like taking advantage of artificial intelligence. Your searches because of BERT, B-E-R-T, and I've got this written down so I can say it correctly, bidirectional encoder representations from transformers. I don't know who comes up with these names. But anyway, Google is utilizing BERT to see that your searches will be more accurate, that when you use the words to and from, and please look it up, but only 1 in 10 searches in the United States will be privileged to have the use of BERT. So I think I've got it. So you'll notice when you do a search if you've got it or not, because it will be right on. It will understand more what you're looking for. And they've said these improvements are oriented around improving language understanding, at least for 10% of the people who now will have access to BERT. And the next thing that I wanted to talk to you about is concussions. You know when you've got one. If you've ever played softball and been hit in the head with a bat, you probably had a concussion, maybe a slight one unless you were rushed to the ER. I stupidly, when it happened, we had one cold evening, leaned over to a space heater and to adjust the temp down because there's a delay in hours and coming on, going up and down. It gets hot, it gets cold. And I had slick shoes on and I had hardwood floor. The next thing I know, I usually fall backwards if I'm falling and I land on a cushy hip or rear end. But this time I landed like this with my carotid artery going into the edge of a chest and then that throwing my head on the floor and my knees. I think my head and my knees hit the floor at the same time. And I knew because I saw these are the symptoms when you are so dizzy, the room was going around. I didn't lose consciousness. But when you're dazed, you probably have a mild concussion. And what do you do about that? Well, you lay there for a few minutes if you're like me and you're usually alone and you wait to see if it's something worse than a mild concussion. What you need to do, and I've been told and I looked it up, I did not go to the ER on this particular occasion. I should tell you about the other trip. But on this occasion, I laid there going, ooh, that's going to leave a mark, and made sure that I could focus because it does impact your vision. And the instructions are to bed rest, something I am horrible at, sleeping. I am, and that's one of the most important things you can do for your health is sleep. I end up putting myself to sleep by being told a story by my iPod Classic and listening to stories or motivational things at night until I finally associate myself to sleep. But you must sleep, drink plenty of water. This will help. And a concussion, by the way, doesn't mean bleeding into the brain, which if I thought that had happened, I would have called for an ambulance because that's an entirely different thing if you're bleeding in your brain. And that's very dangerous and lethal. And concussions can be dangerous and lethal too, which is why if you're out for a long time, and guess what a long time is? 2 minutes. If you're knocked unconscious for 2 minutes, that's a trip to the ER because you could have a brain bleed, and that would be much more serious than a concussion. They usually last for 7 to 10 days, and you shouldn't be drinking alcohol, and you shouldn't be you should be getting bed rest. I didn't, but I didn't lean over a lot, and that's another thing you don't do. I did a little research, and I feel like I'm okay, but you know, it is scary. And yes, my neck and knees and head still hurt. And yes, I tell myself I'll be more careful next time. I've rearranged the furniture and I'm not leaning over to change. Of course, I don't need the heat now. Here it is October, and what, it's 73 degrees in South Carolina. But some stats that I looked up from concussion statistics from UPMC in Pittsburgh about our glorious football players, that between 1.7 and 3 million sports and recreation related concussions happen each year. That is too many. That is unbelievable. And football related, there are 300,000. As we all know, Luke Kuechly had more than one concussion, I believe, and he was kept out of the game for one or two times. But 300,000 football concussions a year. And according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, 2.4 high school football players die each year due to traumatic head injuries. And it is a type of brain injury. Just to be clear, and I'm not practicing medicine, I'm just sharing some facts with you from someone else, that results in a temporary loss of consciousness or being dazed, as I was. There are diagnosed about 67,000 concussions in high school football. And I think they're trying to improve the helmets, but what it is your head comes against something sharp suddenly and hard, and your brains kind of follow and bounce off the inside of your head. And it's very, very dangerous. And according to research by the New York Times, at least 50 youth football players, high school or younger, from 20 different states have died or sustained head injuries on the field. And I'm a soccer fan, and I've been following our national team FIFA winners of the United States, and heading a hot soccer ball hurts women worse than men. It's not that they're reporting it more, although that's true too. Women's soccer players are more likely than men to report an injury. And this is from a report from NBC News reporter Maggie Fox. And I'm just trying to keep it accurate and real here. The women who headed more balls had 8 brain regions that showed damage compared to the men who headed an equal amount of balls who had damage in 3 parts of their brains. So their findings are adding to a growing body of evidence that men and women express distinct biological differences and responses to brain injury. And there's a list from Mind, MIND diet that mixes the 2 diets that would be good for your brain, whether you have a concussion or not. And I'm just going to throw this out because we're talking about our heads now, and that's pretty important. Being able to think is very important. That the Mediterranean diet, which is all around good for everybody and almost anybody, and the DASH diet, combine them. That the DASH diet helps reduce high blood pressure if you're not aware of it. But the MIND diet highlights food and nutrients that keep you from having Alzheimer's. So look into the MIND and DASH diet and try not to have a concussion and do crazy things. And if you're prone to slipping on rugs, move those rugs. The interesting thing is maybe when I should have had a horrible concussion, all the times that, like being on the roof and hanging upside down, nothing ever happens. It's these stupid little things that you do, like turning on or down a space heater. So just get some sleep. And if you're out or a friend of yours is out, go see a doctor. Go to the ER immediately, because that could mean it's much worse than that. And so since it's Halloween's going to be Thursday, I made a little movie for you, and I'll introduce my little friend here in a second. But this movie, it very quickly will give you the top 10 tips from PetMed, how to keep your pets safe on Halloween. Let me go there now. Hi, this is Carol Butler, and I'm going to give you a quick 10 tip list to keep your pets safe on Halloween, and it's from Pet MD. First of all, trick or treat candies are not for pets. All forms of chocolate, especially baking or dark chocolate, can be dangerous, even lethal for dogs and cats. And there's a special artificial sweetener called xylitol, xylitol, that can be especially poisonous to dogs. It's a type of sugar that's in the candy. Don't let them get in it. Number two, don't leave pets out in the yard on Halloween. You know, there are some vicious pranksters, and they've been known to tease, injure, steal, and even kill pets on Halloween night. Yes, it's inexcusable, but you can prevent it. Keep your pets in. And three, keep them confined and away from the door. Put them in another room or put them in their dog crate if that's possible, because that's certainly better than escaping outdoors on Halloween, because it can be very scary for them. And four, keep those glow sticks away from pets. They're great for children and people so that you can be seen and safe on Halloween night. But thankfully, the liquid inside a glow stick is non-toxic, but it will actually make the pet very sick, and it does taste awful. It tastes awful. So pets who get into one, immediately they'll probably start vomiting. And it's recommended that you give them a lot of water or a small meal to help clear the material out of their mouth. And five, keep Halloween plants such as pumpkins and corn out of reach. While small amounts of corn and pumpkin can be fed safely to many pets, if they're ingesting uncooked, potentially moldy Halloween pumpkins, oh gosh, mine, I told you last week, you're supposed to cut your jack-o'-lantern 3 days before Halloween. Mine didn't make it 3 days before it just fell apart. And if animals eat something they're not used to eating, it can give them a gastrointestinal problem. And six, don't keep lit pumpkins around pets. That would seem to be commonsensible, but make sure to place them well out of reach of your pets and your children. And let me get to 7, where this is actually legible. Keep electric and battery-powered Halloween decorations out of reach. My cat chews on my iPhone cord, so they certainly can have an electric shock and cost you a lot of money. And batteries can cause a chemical burn when chewed, or gastrointestinal blockage if swallowed, or shards of glass or plastic can cause lacerations anywhere on the body or within, and that's expensive and deadly, possibly for your animals. And 8, don't dress your pet in a costume unless you know they love it. And if you do decide to do it, they should not restrict movement, hearing, eyesight, or the ability to breathe. Frankly, that pets who wear costumes should always be supervised by a vet, if they're handy, if you have a friend for a vet, or an adult. I was kidding. So that if something goes wrong, it can be addressed right away. And for goodness sakes, test it on your pet before Halloween, because if they, really react terribly, don't make them do that. Maybe do it quick for a photo and then take it off. And 10, please, if your dog or cat gets out, likely they'll be lost if there's no ID for them. So take care to see that you do that. These short 10 tips to keep your animals safe on Halloween. Okay, welcome back. I hope you thought that was fun, and also I hope it keeps your animals safe. This is my little friend. I've had this one for years. My friend Margaret Wright got this little buddy. Mr. Stump is what I call him. And I think it's always good to have a little entertainment on Halloween. So here is yours, very short. We're out for Halloween. The costumes are a scream. It sure is fun to see 'em. The kids who trick or treat. Just look at what they're wearing. They're all just up for scaring. They're cute beyond comparing. The kids do trick or treat. Okay, that was your entertainment. Thank you for doing that today. And the other thing that I'm going to, as always, sharing information about fun things I'm doing. Now that I have my computer back, if those of you who have not been following me and my show was not on for some time, it's because my computer had I'll call it a hiccup, but it's been in California quite some time, which makes it difficult to produce and do my shows and build the second course for my online school. And I want to tell you that being on camera right now, it's not only similar to public speaking, it is public speaking. And a lot of people won't do it, don't do it. They're terrified because they think they're going to screw up. Well, guess what? You screw up and you go on. And one of the things that people say to me over and over again, Carol, I can't be a guest because I can't be on camera. It just makes me uncomfortable. And I have done that for, are you ready for this? Not on camera, but public speaking, not as a public speaker as a job, but it was part of my job in broadcast sales. So I've done that for over 30 years. And things happen. And one of the things that I learned, but I've learned many things, it's going to be a mini course. I'm going to keep it very short to maybe 10 or less tips. But you can get early access to what I'm going to call confidence for life. I can help you more than anyone else. I was once called to another city by an ad agency who said, Carol, we have a car client and he cannot relax to be in his own commercial. We don't know what to do. He's stiff, he's reading, and I'll tell you inside the course what I did to see that he came across relaxed and brilliant. And I had an hour with him. That's how fast you can be confident in going on camera. If you know some of they're not secrets, is that people don't believe them. But I need to do this because I want guests on my show. I want you and to interact with me live, and I want you to feel confident. At some point in everybody's life, you're going to be speaking in public, whether you're sitting down at a table, standing up at a podium, or just expressing yourself in class or in church. So I'm going to give early access right now. If you go to my school page, and it will cost, but those that get early access are going to get 50% off, and it's going to be very inexpensive because this is so important to me. As we all struggled when we were young, I mean, I learned that people actually, don't always tell the truth. That was a surprise to me at 20. Because I had friends that never lied to me, and I had family that didn't do that. And so I went out into the world in college, and I believed, I was so naive. And then you get put on the spot. I've been at conventions where I was called out in front of 20,000 people. I was also, just for the record, selected, and I volunteered. I was recommended, referred. I had to write a speech, and I was my college commencement speaker. And I can tell you why I was so confident, and I'm going to tell you what happened to me while I was in line getting ready to go on stage to give the speech. So it's going to be a fun course because at some point in time, you are going to be in that position. So I felt like, this sounds funny, this course will be like toilet paper. Everybody needs it ultimately. And it's called Confident for Life. And it's going to be at and on Carol King Butler Academy. You can get there by going to www.carolkingbutler.com and just get early access. It doesn't mean you're buying it, but it will mean you'll be offered an opportunity to get it half off, because we all need, if you're on camera, like for me, it's a way to connect with you so that you see that I'm a real person. I'm not an actor hired to represent Carol King Butler. I am Carol King Butler. And I'm very sincere, which means I'm authentic. And you can only be sincere and authentic when you're comfortable that what you have to say is important. And I thought this was the most important course I should do next, following the course it took Catherine Gillis and I 3 years to create, called Become a Fearless Traditional Retoucher and Spotter. That was very, very intense with videos, and this will be a mini course. So it'll be something that high school students, um, you know, 70-year-old people, business people will want to take, salespeople will love. Anybody that wants to feel more confident. So I'm real excited. So go there, get early access. And I'm going to end the show with something that Deepak Chopra said. And all I have to do is find it so I don't misquote him, because he's one of my favorite people because I love inspirational quotes. And he wrote, "Faith is the certainty and knowing of the invisible self." That's who you are inside, without which there is no experience of the visible body or world. So you inside go on and on and on always. And your body, God, how many bodies have I had? How many bodies have you had? Think about it. Baby body, teenage body, young adult body. So, and every 7 years, all your cells replace themselves. That's fascinating to me. So without that self-awareness and being aware of that inner you, you can't do anything. So believe in yourself, and I look forward to seeing you next week, where I'll tell you more about this course and why it's important. And I'll probably by then have something you can download as a quickie list to get you started and feeling great about yourself. So this has been Carol Butler. Thank you for joining me on the Carol Butler Show, that's live every Tuesday now from 11:30 until noon, or 18 minutes, whichever comes sooner. So thank you for joining me.